The Bible tells us that when Jacob wrestled with the angel, God said to Jacob, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have struggled with God and with men, and you have prevailed." Yes, to be a Jew, to be a member of the people of Israel, has always been a struggle. A struggle with our fellow human being and a struggle with God. But that seemed to be our destiny. Here in Israel today, we are facing tough time. We are at war. The situation is getting worse from day to day. And at a time like this, a question arises that each of us has to answer. Whose side are you on? How do we know who and what is right? Who to listen to and whose side to be on? This very question appears in the Bible, and it was Joshua who asked it. At that time, when Israel entered the Promised Land, after God commanded them to conquer the land and to wipe out its inhabitants, it tells us that when Joshua was near Jericho, he encountered a man with a drawn sword who was the angel of the Lord. And Joshua asked him, "Are you for us or for our adversary? Whose side are you on?" And the answer of the angel was unexpected. He said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" The angel gave a strange answer. He did not respond with a yes or no as was expected. It was the Lord who commanded Joshua to take the land. So why wouldn't the commander of the Lord's army be on Joshua's side? It says that Joshua fell on his face, worshipped and said, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" Joshua recognized that God was in charge and not him. The Lord had bigger plans for Israel and for the land that he was giving to them. Plans that were far above human plans. God is on his own side and he rules over everything. God is just, and he is the one who has established what justice is. And as we learn from the time of Noah, that God's patience with mankind does not last forever. From Leviticus 18, we learn that in the time of Joshua, the nation within Canaan, within Israel, were known to be brutal, wicked, and extremely immoral. God's instructions for Israel was to completely wipe them out, which they did not fully accomplish. In the same way, the Amalekites, they were also violently evil, and they were the first to wage war on Israel, just as Israel left Egypt. They attacked the weak and the tired struggler from the rear. And God said that because of this, he would have war against Amalek from generation to the generation, and that he would blot out their memory from under heaven. Maybe to us it seems a bit harsh, but God knows every heart and every spirit behind it. So what does God say about the war between Israel and Hamas? We need to understand that God also knows every heart of those in Gaza. We do not. We know that God is just, and he does not allow the wicked to prevail. How, why, and when are his decisions. Many have trouble understanding why, according to the Bible, God would wipe up entire cities or people. But then, when we see the shocking, horrible deed of ISIS did some years back, or the shocking Hamas massacre of October 7, that just happened to us here in Israel, that so much of it was graphically streamed live for the world to see on social media, like burning a baby in the oven while forcing the parents to watch, or cutting the breast off and beheading a teenage girl while raping her. When we see such extreme evil, we begin to understand why God gives such instruction to eliminate the Amalekite, who were unrepented and committed enemy whose goal was to massacre the innocents and the weak. And today Hamas is openly preparing the younger generation for the next opportunity to do the same thing again. Maybe it is difficult for many to understand this, but the Bible teaches us exactly what God's feelings are about it and how He will handle it. In the book of Zechariah, it says, that by the arrival of our Messiah, all nations will gather for war against Jerusalem and against Israel, God's people. Maybe before it was hard to see or to understand how such things are possible. But today we can easily see how the world is heading in that direction. The next coming of our Messiah, Yeshua, will not be with mercy on those who hate him. He is not coming to discuss with his enemy or to compromise. According to the prophets, he is coming to defend his Jewish brothers and his people Israel, to execute his judgment on his enemy and to establish his kingdom. He will be seated on David's throne, just as it was promised. The Prince of Peace will establish peace according to God's justice. Let us imagine for a moment, if back then, in the time of Joshua, there were social media reports from those in Jericho and Canaanite. Can you imagine watching those daily videos and commentary about those violent Israeli slaves? It would probably say about them, they are spreading unbelievable propaganda. They talk about the God who wiped out the Egyptian and walked them through the Red Sea. And now they are coming to invade the peaceful Canaanite land. Whom would you believe then? Would you call yourself then a pro-Canaanite or a pro-Amalek? Without God's perspective, it gets messy and confusing. We must be grounded in God's words and in His promises. There are always multiple perspectives on every war. And as humans, we want to know who is right and who is wrong. But we must remember that it was God who established that distinction. God taught us how to tell right from wrong. That is why we need God's perspective. With the ongoing war here in Israel and all the media report, there is so many opinions about right and wrong. Are you pro-Israel? Or do you sympathize with the Palestinian suffering and see Israel as the oppressor and the enemy? There is a struggle. But the Bible clearly lays out the past and the future of the people of Israel, the chosen nation. The word God is very clear. God continues to move Israel to the center stage of the world's attention. So whose side are we supposed to be on? Should we, like Joshua, take the side of God and believe that the war is God's and stand by His side? Or to believe that we are alone and fight with our own strength? But alone, we cannot. With God, we are above the spiritual forces that are behind these conflicts, behind this war. In the New Testament, in the book of Ephesians 6, it says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authority of the unseen world, against mighty powers in the dark world, and against evil spirit in the heavenly places." We must unite and hold on to God and continue praying, and not to fall for the lies by the master of lies, and the false propaganda of today's media. The enemy over and over tried to eliminate us, the Jewish people, as he attempted to do in the Holocaust, by slaughtering 6 million Jews. But yet, out of the depth of those tragedies, 2 great biblical prophecies were fulfilled: the restoration of the Jewish state of Israel and the return to the ancient holy city, Jerusalem. We, the Jewish people, always have to fight for our right to exist, to have one place on earth where we can defend ourselves. Why is it in a world in which there are 57 Islamic states and about 100 Christian states, but the Jewish people should not have the right to have just one tiny piece of land? This is the story of David versus Goliath? Why, after so many years of seeking peace, is Israel still seen as the aggressor? Why is it that we, the Jews, Israel, don't have the right to exist? Why are we hated so much? The book of Romans in the New Testament tells us that to the Jewish people were entrusted the oracles of God. They carry God's special revelation and glory. Therefore, Satan is determined to destroy and slaughter the nation who has been appointed to bring God's blessing to earth, to bring light to the world. As the New Testament in Romans tells us, The Jews were entrusted with the oracle of God. They are Israelites, and to them belong the adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law, the worship, and the promise. To them belong the patriarch, and from their race, according to the flesh, is the Messiah, who is God over all, blessed forever. Amen. God chose the children of Israel as a priestly nation to bring light to the world through the offering of the Passover Lamb, our Messiah, for the salvation of humanity. Therefore, we are persecuted. The conflict in Israel has existed since we became a nation. The Jewish people have always been persecuted by their neighbors, whether it was the Egyptian or the Amalekite, the Midianite, the Moabite, the Ammonite, the Amorite, the Philistine, the Syrian, the Babylonian, the Persian, or the Roman. According to the Bible, it is because God has a special plan for the nation of Israel. And Satan wants to destroy this plan and to prevent the coming of the Messiah. The hatred of Israel and the hatred toward the God of Israel comes from the influence of Satan. And this is why Israel's neighbors have always sought to destroy Israel. Whether it was the king of Assyria, or Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany, or Hassan Rouhani, the president of Iran. They all attempted to completely destroy Israel, and all failed. The persecution of Israel will come and go, but the persecution will remain until the second coming of our beloved Messiah. Regardless of Israel's response to the Messiah, we remain chosen and loved by God. And one must understand that the major factor behind this war is because we are holding on to God. The entire Bible, including the New Testament, is centered around Israel and the Jewish people. According to the Bible, Israel has inherited from Father Abraham God's gift of the land as an eternal covenant. And the Bible tells us that Israel's gifts are not revoked despite their sin. The Bible in the book of Ezekiel tells us that God would regather the Jewish people to the land even before the repentance and their spiritual transformation, to demonstrate His unconditional faithfulness. God is bringing His scattered people back from the nation to their promised land. It is fulfillment of almost every biblical prophecy. To ignore prophecies about Israel's return to the land is to ignore God's plan for the end days. The Messiah Yeshua himself testified to an ongoing longing to regather Jerusalem children from around the world. The entire Bible, from beginning to the end, testifies that God will surely bring His Jewish people back into the land from the end of the earth. This promise will be fulfilled through the help of those in the nation that follow Israel's Messiah, Yeshua. Now arises a question. What will the church do? Will true followers of Yeshua the Messiah who read and love and teach the Bible, will they stand with Israel in our darkest hour or abandon Israel? Will they protect the Jewish people? Or will the church fail this test again, just as they failed at the time of the Holocaust? In the New Testament, it is written that the Messiah Yeshua, upon His coming, will separate between the righteous and the wicked. One day, each one of us will stand before the God of Israel. And what will He say to us? Good and faithful servant, or I do not know you? When our great test is over, will we pass it or fail? You shall be called Israel, it says, for you have wrestled with God and with men. Throughout more than 100 generations of our history, we have known that to be a Jew involves struggle with our fellow human being, and sometimes struggle with God. Yet, in that very name, Israel, a promise was born. That though we, the people of Israel, must struggle, we will always prevail. For God is with us, Emmanuel,